Safety story?
Yes, hi. Good morning, everyone. Phil Santos in Radiology, and we'll be presenting today a good catch safety story with Dr. Hegner. Um, a VIR consult was received for a port and a G-tube for a patient with esophageal cancer, and that was scheduled for Wednesday. But part of our procedure is to protocol the study and review the request so that we could plan for how we are to complete the study. So during the review process, it was established by Dr. Hagner that for a G-tube, the patient would need a nutrition consult as a prerequisite for the G-tube request. But upon discussion with the nutritionist, they were able to establish the fact that the patient has not been taken up in the tumor registry board yet. And therefore, the patient was referred to the patient's case was referred to the tumor registry board, and it was determined that the patient is a stage 1 cancer patient and is a surgical candidate. And therefore, the patient does not need the rad-onc consult, the the port, and the G-tube request for VIR. So, Dr. Hagner, you
Yeah,
have
so
anything
I
to?
think this is a good example of uh, um, teams working together. Like Phil mentioned, I suggested that they get a nutrition consult, and I'll give all the credit here to Regina. We happened to be walking out of the building at the same time, and Regina said, "Hey, it's always been my understanding that if you have a patient with esophageal cancer, you really want to be careful with G-tubes. One of the treatments, and the treatment that's I believe most appropriate for this patient, is a pull-up. They basically just cut out the tumor and then pull the stomach up and attach it back to the esophagus. Having a G-tube there can potentially preclude them from that surgery, or at least make the surgery more difficult. And so, Regina was telling me that, and I was like, you know what, that makes total sense. So what we did was we basically kept an eye on the tumor board. Was scheduled to be the day before we did the procedure. So it was kind of like, let's see what the tumor board says before we 100% go ahead and work on this patient. And sure enough, he's a stage 1 patient. He can get an esophageal pull-up, so he doesn't need the port or the G-tube. Thing that's a little concerning for me is I would put this in as a near miss. If we hadn't been paying attention, and if the patient had been scheduled for, say, Monday or even Tuesday, he would have had a port and a G-tube that he did not need per the tumor board. So I think this is a good example of teams working together. Regina's experience kind of pulled into the mix. And I think there's also a potential systems issue here. That being that the port and the G-tube were actually ordered before tumor board had weighed in and really had 100% decided the treatment plan for this patient. So I think going forward, we may incorporate that logic into our scheduling. I know for oncology, there's some time pressure between diagnosis to first treatment. So we're going to kind of, and I know quality is aware of the case, so I think we're going to kind of look at it and see. This was a near miss, and it could have very easily been unneeded procedures. So I think we have to look at the whole process and put something in place to prevent that from, we were really close. So we need to put something in place to prevent that from happening again.
Dr. Hagner and Phil, thank you for bringing this forward. I think that we identified quite a few things in this near miss. And it demonstrated, of course, the strength in working as a team, but also in being brave enough to identify the issue that occurred with the first order. And I'm glad that quality is looking at it. It should be looked at further. And again, it's to look at the system, and I'm so thankful that the patient, it was not an adverse outcome. So great safety story. I think it should be repeated again, you know, in another area. Maybe it's either at the in the clinical arena, Dr. Howard, but
Yeah, this is a safety story that I think the next time I'm asked to present at HTC, this is the one that I would pick. And I just absolutely am so pleased that the first part of it happened, i.e. the, oh no, we shouldn't do this, we need to hold off, stop the line, however you want to phrase that. But it would have been so easy at that point to say, okay, we dodged that bullet, this guy's going to be fine, and I got 27 other patients to take care of. But to go through the thinking and the talking and the reporting to say, how do we prevent this from happening to another veteran is absolutely key. And I'm very, very impressed by the team taking it to that step.
yeah, absolutely, Dr. Howard, absolutely. So I think that this too should go in to the network as a very strong story, and written in a way of, we're not just saying exactly what Dick said. We're thankful
Yeah.
that this veteran is okay. Now we're looking at many different processes and systems in place. So
I mean, this is one where if I were sitting listening to the Bronx tell this story at a meeting, I'd say, whoa, I got to go home and make sure we're okay with our systems.
yeah,
So.
absolutely. Great story, Doctor. And Dr. Hegner and Phil, good story. Thank you for presenting.